materials. Breaks. Let's talk about that because that's the important stuff. So we are on a central time zone scheduled class. I'm on the East Coast. Some of y'all might be other places as well. So I know our timing is an 8:30 to start this morning and 5 to end. But I am going to use the central time for planning in terms of lunch. For
Cool.
lunch, we have the full hour because I'm cool. I know there's some instructors that are like, we're gonna knock this out in half an hour, and I don't like them any more than you probably do. So I'm not one of them. We will take our full lunch, and it will be at a standard 12 to 1 central time because I know you guys have to plan around your work schedule and your life schedule and all the things. So be confident 12 to 1 full hour, that's central time. So if you're in another time zone, just do your math. But we will do that. Also, because again, we're virtual, I'm talking to you nonstop, and I don't want to put you to sleep under your desk. So we do break frequently. I know that we can pay attention to like 20 minutes. And it's like, yeah, great. We pay attention 20 minutes, but we have this full day virtual class. So we don't follow the rules of 20-minute attention span on these types of things, right? But every hour and 15, hour and a half, I try to give us at least a 15-minute break so that we can go run around the room or do whatever you need to do to like get it together. Um, Anybody do Peloton and follow Cody? And he's always like, get your life together. He's like, grab the water, grab a towel, get your life
Oh
together.
yeah.
So yeah, so we're gonna get our lives together during those breaks and we'll come back and hit it again.
Cool.
Uh, all right, so what else do I want to tell you? This class has been running pretty much almost to the end of the day. So I know it's Friday and I am like the last thing in between you and your weekend. So I'm gonna try to make this as least painful as I can. Maybe a little bit fun, if you will. I just tell everyone I'm funny, but then I guess I have to tell you I'm funny. I don't know, maybe I'm not. We'll see. So that's what that's going to be. Now, typically we would go through a whole list of intros and talk all about ourselves, but we don't have time for that. Oh, cool. We're up to 17 people now. So what I'm going to do is just open up chat. So yes, I know you have a black box on the side of your screen. Don't worry about it. Tell me where you are. Yeah, I can Nancy too, Charlotte. I am the worst. And as I get older, it is getting worse. Anybody else like that? Where I'm just like, I can't even sit still anymore. Man, it is bad. So we're in New Jersey. Nicolette's in New Jersey. Okay, so you're an East Coast friend like me. Indiana, but still 1 hour plus. So does that mean what does that mean? In neighbor, but still 1 hour plus. Abraham, I think I probably said that wrong. Are you in Indiana? But are you doing that like Indiana thing where
Oh
time
yeah, I
doesn't
said
change?
Indiana, but still, the city is like 1 hour just forward.
Oh, okay. So you're in
Yeah.
Eastern time, like with me, right? Yep.
Yes. But you
Cool,
still,
cool.
yeah, I'm still an hour, ahead of you.
Nice, good. And then we've got Austin. Okay, I think Austin is Central Time, yeah? I believe.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, I've got yeah, fidget toy. I got like 75 fidget toys. I don't know how many more I need. Oh, California, so we're early. What is that, 7 o'clock for you right now, Farah?
Yep.
Is that Kansas City, Missouri? Is that what's KCMO? What is KCMO? That's where Michael is. And Tennessee, Knoxville. Okay, so that's Central. Boston. Hi, Boston. You're east with me. Okay, another Nashville, Michigan. Ooh, Medellin. What? You guys are about the same time as Eastern, right? You might be an hour ahead of me. Tatiana, are you 11 a.m. right now? I might be completely wrong on
Yeah,
that.
it's 1 hour.
Okay, okay. I've only been to Bogota, and I remember that being either my time or only 1 hour, and I don't actually know, like off the top of my head,
Yeah,
how.
no, when the time changes, so
Uh-huh.
it's part of the year the same time and part of the year 1 hour more.
Goodness. I wish we didn't do that time change business. It really, like, I don't think anybody likes it. And all, we just as a world need to be on the same time plan or it gets mixed up. We got two Medians. Do you guys know each other? Do you work together, or is that just total coincidence, Roger and Tatiana?
No, we were together.
Okay, I was gonna say that's one heck of a coincidence.
Yeah.
And we've got Georgia. Okay, we've got Vietnam. Oh, all night. Oh my goodness. How do you say your first name for me? Hingock?
Yeah, maybe pronounce it Thiên. Yeah, Ngọc Thiên.
Tien. Okay. Tien.
Yeah.
Very
Nice to
good.
meet you, everyone.
Nice. Nice to meet. So what time is it for you right now?
Maybe it's like 9 p.m. 9 p.m.
Oh my goodness gracious. So it's like the start of the night on a Friday night, and I'm gonna take you into your Saturday. Bless your heart.
Yeah. But yeah, the only time slot I available is for this class. So
I understand. I
yeah.
understand. A little bit of a different party Friday night than things used to be, huh? Okay, Juan Jose and Victoria. So we must all work together then. We're all from Medellin. We all work together. There's 4 of us.
Yeah, we work together.
Got it. Cool, cool. Okay, so yes, and Kansas City said, all right, Nicolette, we'll circle back to her because I know she had to walk out. And Knoxville. Is Knoxville Eastern time? I used to travel all the time, at least in the States a lot, and now I just feel like I don't even know what time anything is anymore. So, all right, well, thank you for doing
Yes.
Okay, great. But part of Tennessee is central. Knoxville's Tennessee, right? I'm not crazy.
All in Middle Tennessee and West Tennessee. So Nashville's central, and then Middle Tennessee central, and then east is eastern.
That's even worse when it's the same state, but you have a different time zone.
Yeah.
It's like, what if you're just across the street and you're like, I'm gonna go to the store, but then the store's closed because you didn't realize it was an hour different. Crazy times. All right, cool. Thank you guys for doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and close that up. And then let's just go through a few of these slides here, and then I'll get you guys logged in to your books and all that good stuff. But as we mentioned, our assumption is that hopefully you're not, brand new today. 6 or more months of experience as an admin is kind of the suggestion. It's not a hard and static fact, but that's just kind of what we say. And then also we're really hoping that you've completed the 5-day class or something equivalent. So if you did something more self-guided, online, cool. If you sat through the instructor-led class, you'll notice a lot of these same slides, maybe different scenarios, but a lot of the same slides and kind of layout. So this is really high level overview. Okay, you did self-guided path. Cool. Yep, either way. And just to kind of pull this up to give us a quick high level, but I'm also gonna just grab this link too, and I'm gonna throw this in chat right now as we discuss this, because this is a good trailhead area to be at. The Salesforce platform admin certification. Well, it's not even trailhead, it's on trailhead. It's not a trail, but it's a study guide. It's all about the certification itself. So if you want to go in and you want to break down these exam objectives a little bit more granularly, that's the place to go. If you want to just get a high level overview of pricing, that's where to go as well. In terms of signing up for the exam, you can do that through Trailhead as well. So just the regular Trailhead, even if you just type in Trailhead there and went to the link, you can go into where you log in, and then you can sign up for the exam within this realm here. So that's in chat for you to take a look at, but I'm going to jump back into our slide. All right, so back in what I just shared in chat, you'll be able to see these exam objectives and all of the points, the bullet points under them. So here you see the weighting and such, but you'll get a more specific detail of what falls under each of these categories. So quick facts. Typically it's 60 questions. They say 65 because you may be in a time where they throw in some beta questions just to test them out. It would be 5 and they're non-scored. So if you do see it's 65 questions, then there's some of those test beta kind of questions that they're evaluating. They will not count towards your total score, but you also won't know which ones they are, unfortunately. But they do give you an extra 15 minutes if you have 65 questions. If it is 60, you'll have 90 minutes. The passing score is 68, which I always say is kind of like the good and the bad news, because you're like, oh, I only have to get a 68, but it's like, oh, I don't have to get a 68. And it really illustrates the difficulty of the exam. It's not an exam where I would say just jump in and fly by the seat of your pants. You want a little bit of a strategy and some studying for sure. It's doable, but it is difficult. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, easy peasy, you'll blow through it. Like maybe, and more power to you, but it is a fairly difficult exam. So that's your passing score 68. So if you think about that in terms of math, it's about what, 38 out of 60 you'd have to get correct. So kind of keep that in mind. It is a multiple choice exam, and it may be single choice, or it might be like a pick two of your answers. It will tell you right there in the test very specifically, pick three, pick two, or whatever. And the good news is it won't let you advance without filling out all of the answers. So if you're like, oh, you pick one and you try to move forward, but it's a pick two, it's going to tell you need to pick the other one. So at least it doesn't let you accidentally make that kind of a mistake. But on the other side of that, because it is a pick two, you have to get them both right. There's no partial credit for the answers. So you do get your results immediately, pass, fail, and then you also get something that looks a little bit like this on each of the objective topics. It'll tell you how well you did. So if you needed to take the test again, it gives you some insight into where you might want to spend your time studying. There's no hard copy or online materials. It is completely closed book. And if you have ever taken one of our exams in the past, you know that either if you're in a testing center or if you decide to do it virtually at home, it kind of locks down your computer where you can't go anywhere else. And if you do it virtually at home, there's some setup with the webcam and that kind of stuff, because it is proctored by a human on the other side. And they literally can, like at any time, say stop and show me your room, show me what's going on. So all of that information, though, you can see back behind that link I put in chat for this admin cert. And it'll give you like the requirements for your computer if you're doing it at home, or it'll give you the testing centers that you can go out to. So that's the overview there. We're going to get through all of these babies. Really, this isn't really a lesson. This is just kind of like a, bye, have a nice weekend. So 8 is where we really stop. That is our practice test, and it is in our slides. More on that a little bit later, but that's that'll be like the last thing that we do this afternoon. So our main lessons are 1 through 7 here. Sure, I can go back to the overview. Did you have a question specifically?
Yeah, I just want to take a look at it. Okay. No, I got it. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then also, if you are back in this down here, this link I sent out,
Yep.
and you click into the see new experience or whatever, because it kind of just changed the method of which and every time gives me my little confetti there. But there would be a link right over to the left that is where you would schedule. And then this is the exam guide link, which was to the right of where you would schedule. And back behind here is where you can get that more broken down topic list for each of those areas. So spend some time there looking through. I always tell people kind of skim it and look for words that aren't as familiar as you think. Like you might be in here and you're like, oh, case auto response rules. Do I remember that? Or do I remember converting leads? Or do I remember, I don't know, what's a good one to think about? Like our data like validation rules. Do I understand the deal between validation rules and some of the other automation or data integrity method, like that kind of stuff? So that would be my suggestion. Go through this this page and just make sure nothing seems super foreign. And if it does, that would be what I want to plug into Trailhead and maybe run through some trails, or maybe I want to go to my help and training. I just want to Google the answer, which will take me to help and training in Salesforce to find the knowledge articles to read up. And then new as of spring 26, we have 8% of the test is on Agentforce. So I did my math, and I think it's like between 3 and 4 questions on the exam could be Agentforce. If you're not familiar very much with Agentforce, well, not all of us are, you know, we're kind of in the rapidly developing and moving realm of AI in our work world, but agentic capabilities are you know, the new big thing here with Salesforce. So that has been added to the exam, where depending on if you've taken the admin class within the past month or so, we now have some slides where we talk a little bit, but it's very high level. So what would I want to do? I want to describe the capabilities and use cases of Agentforce. So there's going to be scenarios. When would it be appropriate? Some security questions, stuff like that. And then explain how to maintain, update, or install prompts. This would be high level. There's a 3-day Agentforce class that talks all about how to install prompts and use Agent Builder. So that's a 3-day class that literally teaches you this. We just want you to kind of understand the high level. So I would run through some trails and just read up. If you don't kind of have a picture of what Agentforce is, that's just what you want to do. It's not going to be in there and be like, you know, show me which prompt is correct. It's not going to be like that. It's more just going to be kind of like high level questions. Let's see here. Review virtual exam was, yeah. The virtual I never chose that because like I'm way too nervous of a person, and as you see, Leo wants to be here half the time. So I figured in the middle of the test he'd probably turn off my Wi-Fi or something like he likes to do. So yeah. I went into a site, do that 360 to show your room and all that. I'm like, like none of your business. I'd have to go hide in a closet or something. I'm weirded out about like these videos in my house, but whatever. The AI section. Okay, cool, Nicolette. I'd love to hear I'd love to hear that experience. If you have anything that you want to tell us, I took the exam a billion years ago, so like AI was a glimmer in Salesforce's eye at that point. So I don't know what the questions are. They obviously don't give us the exam, which is probably a good idea because I'm like a mother hen over here. I'd be like, these are the questions. So it's good that they don't give it to me because I probably would be unethical. No, I wouldn't be. I'm just kidding. But if you have any suggestions for us on what those questions were like, yeah. Oh, Joe, did they have those questions in October? Or you meaning like your first was online and it was weird with the camera thing?
Yeah, no, that was my first proctored attempt in October, and the Agentforce stuff was not there. That was added recently, but
Okay,
and I've gone through several. I've gone through several practice exams, both
Mhm.
timed and untimed here recently through Udemy, and the Agentforce questions are there. And I'm interestingly, I'm not having any problem with those because we're already doing that.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
We're so deep in AI now that it's the synergy is pretty much the same, but yes, they are there.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah. So those are new, but I think maybe Nicola, can you tell me, would you say like there was about 3 or 4 questions? And you might be double duty here on your other meeting, so I won't make you shout out, but all right.
It was the last two practice exams I took. There were 65 questions, and about 4 or 5 of them were Agentforce focused.
Okay. So my math is fuzzy, almost correct.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you for that. All right, going to come back to here. Moving. All right, so these are the lessons we're going to go through. I'm not going to harp on this page because we're going to see them live coming up. Ignore this. This is old. I think all of us know the deal Trailhead, but if you've never heard of Trailhead, it's a good place to get some hands-on practice. I'm like get to the point. So I really like the knowledge articles and help and training, and I want to just read through the actual stuff. I don't always need the little scenario and the cutesy funsy stuff, but some people do. That's okay. We all learn different. but I do like when they give you the hands-on practices, because that I think is super helpful. I mean, it's a little weird and stuff because you're like simulating in like what looks like a true org, but you know, you can only do certain things. But I do think the hands-on piece of it is great. I love spinning up a playground and then completing the activity. There's also things like super badges where you go in and you kind of complete a project without instructions. And then you get tons of like points. Does anybody care about points on Trailhead? Badges and points? Does anybody have like an organization that is like really into that? Yeah. I'm like, unless there's a catalog where I can redeem these points for prizes, I'm like, whatever, you know. Yeah, I didn't think so. But, you know, we're Salesforce and we're like, yay, badges, points, be a ranger, you do you, whatever works. Yours is built but not required. Okay, gotcha. Cool. But I do like the ability also to connect with other Salesforce users, you know, not in your own company per se, but just really across the globe. So that's a great resource for interacting with people and learning from what other people have done. I always say to my classes, you know, if you have something out there that you need to do, you're not the first one. So go and see what other folks have done. Use their time and energy and you know, learn from what they've gone through. All right, so that's our intro, friends, and we are going to, I think, since I believe now we probably have most of everybody, we're up to 17. Let's go in and grab our guides. So if you've ever taken a class with us before, we used to get all of our training stuff through a mode or an outfit called Mimeo. And we have since changed very recently to getting everything through what we call an org farm. So I have put a link in chat. It's this thing that ends with org claim. So if you click on that in chat, and then let me get to mine and move this out of the way so I can see what's going on. Did I lose it? It was out, but where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, that's okay. I will also click on the link then. Maybe. Okay, here we are. Okay. So it's going to take you to the page that looks like this. And I would maybe either bookmark or, you know, save this link somewhere because this is where you're going to go to get your materials. Now you should initially open up to this blank box right in the top. Don't worry about all my little numbers. Those are just my past classes and event numbers. Well, then you're going to paste in that weird paste, yada, yada number letter combo that I put in chat. That's our code for our class today. And then when you click redeem code, it's going to take you to this page right here. So we've really made this now a one-stop shop for all the stuff that we use in class. There really isn't an exercise guide. There isn't really any exercises that we do, so you don't have to worry about exercise guide. But the student guide is helpful. So if you click download on the student guide, and now we can download these. If you've been in classes before with Mimeo, we really couldn't download in an effective way. But if you want to download this and keep this on your desktop or whatever, now we have that method. So it is a PDF format of all the slides I go through 2 per page. So these should look familiar because we've just walked through them. You have all of that. I typically get a question middle of class where someone's like, hey, Shannon, where do I get your slides? Yeah, no, you already have them. They're right there. This is the student guide. We also, if you wish, have an org that you can log into. This is going to be your easiest way to log in. Otherwise, you have to have this username and password and all that. You don't have to have that here. You just go and you click launch and you have a fresh new org available to you that you are the only one that has access to. And if you were in any of our classes before, You're like, oh, this looks pretty familiar. I think I remember this Northern Trail Outfitter example org. That's basically what that is. You also can see the expiration date through this org claim site. So if you want to see when that org expires, April 29th, 2026. So you have about a month to play around in that test environment. If you want to, you don't have to, but you most certainly can. In fact, if you have the exercise guide from the 5-day class, you could go through all of the exercises fresh again if you wanted. We specifically don't use this together to do anything. I have it open because sometimes I like to point stuff out, but we will not be hands-on at all today. But feel free to go in there and play. And then later,
Question quickly.
yeah, you betcha.
Does the org work on an iPad or just on a computer?
No, it does. So like if you're on an iPad, you open up Safari, or you can access this stuff here. Obviously,
Okay.
just with an iPad, it's a little more, it's a little clunkier from
Yeah.
like the browser version. But we
Mhm.
also do have mobile apps for Salesforce. So if you wanted to download your mobile app on your iPad or frankly even your iPhone, you can see the mobile setup of the org as well. So it won't be like the browser version that we are used to on our laptops or computers, whatever. It'll be, more appy. And we have some screenshots to see what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, you can on your iPad, sometimes if I'm just looking for something real quick, I'll just log into the non-app version. It's just obviously smaller and the navigation stuff's a little more tricky depending on what you're trying to do because it's an iPad. Any other thoughts, questions on that? All right, so I'll give you a minute. Again, jump into chat. Click on that link, put in your PACE number. Go ahead and, just download that book if you want, or just know it's there. We'll come back to this also later at the end of class when we go to our course evaluation, because that will pop up towards the end of class and be an easy way into there. All right, so that's yours basically forever as long as you still have that link and can grab that. All righty, any questions before we jump into lesson 1 and get rolling? Oh, the other thing, we don't have to sign in for attendance anymore. If you have ever had to type in that code for attendance, we eliminated that. So just by virtue of you being here on the meeting, we've got your attendance. Okay, configuration and setup. Here we go, friends. All of our all of our lessons have an exam objectives slide that gives you the breakdown. This is very similar to what we saw on this study guide. I think study guide still probably has a little bit more wording about it, but this will give you a high level of the breakdown of the 15% of config and setup questions that we're going to hit. So it's going to be things like company settings information, different ideas about administration of declarative configuration, declarative meaning our point and click configuration, basically. So our no code stuff. Talk about maintaining our users, setting them up, some different security controls, thoughts. We go through user request scenarios and figure out what we would need based on what they ask. And then we'll talk about custom profile and permission sets. Northern Trail Outfitters is our test company that we like to use here for our classes. And Northern Trail Outfitters, we'll call it NTO for short, is basically a athletic apparel company. And we've been US based up until the acquisition of a shoe company out in Ireland called Cloudkicks. So we're merging these teams together. Northern Trail Outfitters has been using Salesforce for about a year. There was a consultant or an implementation team that came in and got config all up and running. And now we are going to be taking a look at this as if we're the admins maintaining the admin config from here on out. So we're going to have some questions about checking different settings. How would we build things? What would be the way we want to approach specific scenarios? So the first thing we're going to talk about, and this is high level overview of stuff, but this particular slide is really a one and done for the most part. Company settings are typically going to be captured and entered at the beginning of the startup of your organization. So startup contract, whatever, like day one type stuff. Can we go in here and change these? Absolutely. Would we be going in and changing them much? Unlikely. But it's important stuff like your company information. What's your name and address of your org? Who's that primary contact? Default locale usually refers to headquarters. Currency locale is going to be the headquarters currency also. Storage used and available and your different license types that are available and in use. Financial information will include things like fiscal year and currencies. By default, Salesforce is single currency straight out of the box. So day one, you open it up, you have one currency you can choose. We can set up multiple currencies as admin. So if I do work with multiple currencies, I have to go in and literally select that I want to do that. And then you can go and you can update and add the different currencies that you work with. Support information, that's all about like, do I have a customer service center? Do I have a help center? What are our business hours? What are our holidays? Are we Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Mountain Time? Are we 24/7? Whatever that happens to be, we notate that there. So some of our either automation for support for the support side of the house, or, just so that we have that and the system knows when we're going to be present or not. You're not going to get like a nitty gritty breakdown type question of the licenses because there's tons of different licenses and add-ons that as an organization you could purchase. But in general, the standard user license is going to be that Salesforce license. That's the basic like ground level license that everybody has to be able to log in and see actual data. Whether it be your custom data, custom objects and the standard objects, whatever. I think of them as like the CRM objects. It's like accounts, contacts, cases, if you have any customs, that kind of stuff. You have to at least have the Salesforce license. And then you can add on top of that if necessary, if there's feature licenses or permission set licenses, which is the additional functionality that we purchase separately to add, and then we pick and choose which users need that. Chatter only type users. This is now. Let me ask you guys real quick. Let me get a little participant action here. Give me a check mark in the reactions if your organization uses Chatter. Do we use Chatter? We have thumbs up or a check mark or something.
Thumbs down.
So, thumbs down. So BM, I'm not sure what your first or what your name is, but BM says yes. Victoria says you do. And then let me check chat real quick. Do we? And then we have the thumb down. Ezra says yes. Joe, no. Okay, I would say this is totally typical. That's a totally typical response of like the amount of people who use Chatter. So Chatter is just an internal collaboration tool within the org itself. You have to be logged in to the org to see Chatter. So if you're not a user, or if you have users who don't need to waste a license, a full paid license, because they're not using that CRM type data, then we can give them one of these Chatter licenses if you want them to be able to be a part of that collaboration. Now, Chatter external, Chatter free, these are well, it's all with your subscription. So the word free is a little bit of a misnomer, but Chatter free users, those would be people that are internal, like your actual employees, people on the payroll. Chatter external would be like if you have external partners, vendors, customers that for whatever reason you want to bring them into the private Chatter collaboration. Now, these all require logins. People would have to be logged in to be able to interact with it. So, user different preferences for whether or not we use it or not, but that's kind of what the Chatter stuff is. And then Experience Cloud user, so those are going to be for like we use Experience Cloud a lot with Service Cloud if we're kind of setting up a self-service kind of help environment for our customers can actually go in and log in and get answers and create their own tickets and stuff. Again, those require licenses too. So those are 3 high level. Standard Salesforce is kind of the basic license to get us in and running. Now, fiscal year, again, something you're not changing much. That's usually a set it and forget it, although you can change if necessary. You have 2 types. You have standard and custom. So your standard fiscal year is going to be that basic 12 choices. One of the 12 standard months, first of the month. That's your standard fiscal year. A custom fiscal year, you can structure that however you need. So if you want to start on the 14th of the month and not the first, good for you. If you have 13 months in your year, if you have special periods, whatever, that's cool. Structure it the way you want. Little note though, you can see in the middle where it says after you enable a custom fiscal year, you can't disable. So there's literally like a little page that pops up and you have to say yes, and then you have to confirm, and then you got to click the button. So it'd be hard to accidentally do it, but you can't go back and make it standard if you've changed it to custom. So She Singer Cloud Kicks, the shoe company, they're being brought over into our Salesforce org. And before we set everybody up, I want us to review our current security model to make sure that it is in fact up to date. This, my friends, is one of my favorite pictures for the security piece, because it really visualizes and encapsulates all of the little pieces that work together. If you took the 5-day class, you saw this. If you took the 5-day class with me, we spent a lot of time on this, because this is so important at the very beginning of your understanding, because everything falls back to this. This is all about security. It's all about data access and system access. It's how do I get my individual users the correct access to what they need and not what they don't. And these parts work together very closely, kind of in the order that they're laid out on this screen. And it looks like they're like baked in. I was thinking like an onion, you know how there's all those layers of an onion if you start peeling them? Well, that's kind of how this works. This is like our big onion here of security. So it starts at the organization level, then we think about object level, then we move to record level, and then field level. And we're going to jump in and talk about each of these pieces, but let's just do a rundown. Organization. And I like to give this visual. When I say organization, I'm talking about this right here. This login.salesforce.com page, my user ID, my password. This is what this section is talking about. Can I get through the front door? That's going to incorporate multi-factor authentication or single sign-on. So maybe we aren't logging in with the URL login.salesforce. Maybe we're going in through our single sign-on for our organization, and Salesforce just happens to be one of the apps behind there that we can access. Multi-factor authentication, that deal where you got to run down the hallway because you don't remember where you put your phone, but you got to click accept or whatever. So that's just all getting in the front door of the org itself, kind of like an office building. If I had a key card in the morning and I swipe that key card, can I get in the front door of my office or not? So the other things that'll pop up into that after the authentication is, do we have trusted IP ranges? Do I have to prove my identity by typing that 6-digit code? Do I have on my profile any login hour restrictions or login IP range restrictions, meaning I can only log in Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or only in our office or within this IP range? So if it's Saturday and I'm at Starbucks, can't log in. Do I have those restrictions as an end user? And then all those super annoying password policies that we all love to hate. All of that stuff falls into like that level 1, can we log in? Alrighty, so let's say we've gotten past this stage and now I'm sitting here. Okay, cool. I've logged in for the first time. System's open. Now what? So do I see specific object tabs? What are my permissions on each object? My CRED permissions, create, read, edit, delete. What are my CRED permissions on each object? Are we as an organization using a profile way to hand out permissions? Are we using permission sets instead? Mix of all of that, plus what license do I have? So bare minimum, that Salesforce license, but do I have any other feature licenses or permission set licenses that allow additional functionality? My system permissions are going to be in here too, not just my object permissions, but system permissions, things that may not be object specific, but about what can I do? Like, can I create folders for reports? Can I create dashboards on my own? Can I create my own list views for myself as an end user? Can I send email? So like stuff that would use object information, but not specific to one object. That's all in this object level system permissions. And then third level is record. So big difference between object access and record access is one's talking about the object across the top of the screen here. So I know based on the fact that I can see the word accounts, I have access to account object. But when I look at my list views here, and right now I'm on recently viewed and I've viewed nothing lately. So I'm going to go to all and let that, these are so slow lately with this class. I don't know why. And it's so slow to open, but I was noticing that last week when I was teaching this class, it felt slow. Anyway, so now these are the records that live within my object. So yes, I can see the object, but then the record access talks about which individual records I specifically can see. So they're different, obviously, but they work together. And record access is defined via OWDs, role hierarchy, sharing rules, teams, and manual sharing. So there's a process for that. If you guys remember seeing the triangle in the 5-day class, that triangle, all about record access. And then field level security, literally what it says. At the field level on a record of an object, what do we see? Do we see the field? Can we edit it? Is it read only? Is it not there at all? So what does OWD mean? OWD is organization-wide defaults. So that will set the baseline level of access a user has to records they do not own in each object. But we'll go through that a little more clearly when that comes up. Yeah. Do you go by Theo, or how can I say your full first name, my friend?
Yeah, it works. It's perfect.
Theo works? Perfect. Okay. So I think you're asking, is Chatter like Slack?
Yeah. That was a question I had.
Not really, because I mean, you can collaborate. So there's the collaboration where am I at? Okay. So there's collaboration. Sure. That's where the similarities end. Oh, cute. So these are going to be persnickety today, huh? I was going to let me just open this Chatter tab. Oh, great. Great. Well, we'll not do that. Chatter is more in the org only, where like you can't just have it open separate. Like Slack you could have open with nothing else, right? Chatter is specifically accessed within side of your org, and it's really only to make comments or post links or kind of collaborate within a record or in general in groups maybe, where Slack is a lot more like Teams messaging or those other collaboration tools where you've got more functionality. So Slack can be integrated with your Salesforce org, or you can use Slack kind of on its own without Salesforce. So Chatter really is kind of like a basic way to just write comments on a record where another person could go in and read your comment and respond and such. You can also have like the non-record type chatter, like if I have maybe a company broadcast chatter channel. It's not even a channel, it's a group, where maybe I'm just reading general information about the company, or maybe just there's general chatter back and forth with users of the system. So I can have Slack access and not Salesforce org access. Okay. So let's deeper dive a little bit, and then we'll be coming up on our first break very shortly. So multi-factor authentication, that's that second level of authentication. We have the Salesforce Authenticator, but there's also other apps out there that people might use. Like I have a Microsoft Authenticator too. They all work kind of the same way. You log in, you got to click on the thing saying, yeah, it's me. Single sign-on, that's that authentication, that a method that we can access multiple type applications with that one login. You have to log into everything individually. My domain, if you're using single sign-on, you would be using my domain, and my domain is like a way to specify customer specific name in your URL, and it's a little bit more secure, adding on a little bit of the security layers. And then just as a quick little call out, this tool here, Health Check, and that's available right there in the setup menu. Health Check is like a quick diagnostic tool that you can just open up in the setup menu, and it'll give you some suggestions on how to shore up your security. So it'll run a little checker against the Salesforce baseline level of how it thinks your security tools should be, and it'll tell you how to change things if you need. So it's kind of nice if you're like, I don't really know maybe what we should focus on or what maybe some of our weak points are in our org. It's a quick little automatic checker. So she's saying, okay, cool. Looks like we have quite a few processes in place for logging in. What additional parameters are in place to keep the data in our org safe? All right, so let's start talking about profiles. We discussed the organization level of security, logging in. So now once your users are in the system, now what? So we start with profile. Profiles are all about permissions. I like the P in profile and the P in permissions. Profiles are a way to basically group users together by a specific purpose. So like sales or customer service or maybe executives. So we group these people who kind of need the same level of permissions. And then we set up their cred permissions and their system permissions. Well, whoever has that profile on their user record, and every user has to have a profile, then those are the directions to what permissions and settings that they have in the system. We get a handful of standard profiles just out of the box with Salesforce, and that's fine. However, problem with that is you can't delete them and the permissions can't be edited. So you might be like, well, Shannon, why would I want to use a standard profile if I can't edit it or change it? Well, typically you don't want to use a standard profile for your end users. Standard profiles are a great starting point, like a template where you can go in and create your own custom profile, copying off of one of these standards. So you get that start. It's not like a blank page. And then when you create your custom profile, just by basically, it's a save as engine. Like it boils down to, I'm doing a save as and I'm calling it something new, and now I can do whatever I want to it. So you get those custom profiles and then you change it and switch it up for however it works for your group of users that need that profile. And then you assign it to them. So best practice is always, we like to say clone here in Salesforce, right? But we're really saying copy it. Best practice would be copy and create your custom, because then you have full control. Now, there's kind of two exceptions to that, if you will. Two exceptions to the standard profile where you might assign a standard profile to a specific user, like our standard system admin profile, which, by the way, if you do access our training org that I just gave you through OrgFarm, that's who you are in the system. You're the standard system admin. I always say that there's probably at least one person in every organization who has this standard Salesforce system admin profile. And that's necessary because somebody has to have all the access. And this is standard, so you can't change this particular profile, but it's okay because somebody needs to have the view all, modify all data permission. So that's the person who has access to everything. Now, do you want all of your admins to have the full shebang? Maybe not. And that's where your custom profiles would come. You can create a custom system admin profile if you have a department of admins or a group of admins that are working together. And maybe we're doing a divide and conquer. Like this group over here takes care of specific user login issues. And then this group over here takes care of, like, I don't know, data quality or whatever it happens to be. So you can definitely have more than one system admin in your org, especially if you have a large organization with lots of users, and that you can clone and copy. But somebody, at least one person there, should have everything, and that would be the standard system admin. The other one is like the nothing on my profile start, and that's the minimum access. Minimum access profile is literally a blank slate. So if I was copying to create my own custom profiles and I wanted to just grab one of these standard profiles to start, I don't know, like off the top of my head, what's already been turned on or deselected or whatever, I'd have to go and dig around. And maybe I would just rather start from a blank slate and build from the ground up. And the minimum access profile is a good one to copy if you just want to feel pretty secure that everything's deselected and turned off. And then you can go from there. Another way that you might just use the minimum access profile is assigning to a user, and then they basically have no system permissions and no object permissions. And then we add them on with permission sets. Because the way Salesforce works, having a profile for every user is a requirement. And if you're an organization that's like, we really like to take care of user permissions better with permission sets versus profile, then that gives you that method to fill the need of the requirement of every user having a profile. And then you can kind of mix things up and design things more specifically with permission sets. I work with organizations that do both or have a mix of both or whatever works. So there's no like hard and fast rule of which one is the way to go. You can use them. You can use a mix of both. Or maybe you're like, no, we just like profiles. That's what we've been doing forever. We're going to keep it that way. Good. More power to you. Permission sets kind of allow us a little bit more finer control over setting permissions for specific users. But whatever works for you works for me. What is controlled or can be controlled on the profile versus the user record? So user record is going to be your individual logged in user. You have 20 users in your org. Each of them have their own personal user record. Whereas profile, you can have multiple people assigned to the profile. Your profiles are going to allow you to see and do things in the org. So see, what objects do I see or have access to? Which objects do I at least have read access to? And that's easy to figure out, like if you're in the org, because if I can see these tabs across the top of the screen, and I don't know why this isn't loading right now, don't worry about that. But if I see the objects on the top of the screen, I know at least I have access to those. Now the do, what can I do within the objects? What can I do within the organization? So can I create an account? Can I delete an opportunity? Can I edit a case? Or can I perform some of those specific functions that aren't object specific, like sending emails, creating an email template even, that kind of stuff. But the profile will include things like assigned apps. That being these guys here, the top left-hand corner. If that would open and cooperate with me, I would see a list of other apps. Right now I'm looking at the sales app. So I might have other apps back there that I can access. I'm actually just going to close this and try to relog back into that. It might just be, it doesn't like me. Is this us? Yeah, this is us today, right? Yep. Okay, let me try to relaunch that and see if it'll refresh. Because they create these in it's kind of a simulated environment. They act a little persnickety sometimes. So sometimes they don't quite act like a live organization. All right. So anyway, I can see the object. So I know I have read. Can I create new? If I have this new button, I know I have the create. If I open up one of the records, what other action buttons do I have up here? I have edit. Do I have delete? I do. So for me, I could tell right off the bat here, I've got full object cred for accounts because I can see it, I can create, I can edit, I can delete. So that's part of the profile. Tab settings being, do I see them on top of the screen? Tab settings default on for the sales app. These guys are default on, and anything hiding behind more because they're on top of the screen. The other tab setting is default off. If I go to the app launcher and I go to view all, and I kind of scroll down below the apps that I have access to, these are all of the object tabs that I have access to, but I just don't have enough room across the top of my screen. So we can decide default on or default off. Like for example, we'll use price books. I like that one to example. So price books I have access to, but it's a default off because it's off my screen. Maybe we have some object called purple bananas out there. Well, I don't see purple bananas back here. So that for me means hidden. So if I was an end user and I know purple bananas is an object out there, but I don't see it here, I don't have access to that. So that's a default hidden. Those are my tab settings, default on, default off, or tab hidden. Then we have our record type assignments or page layout assignments. Those are all controlled by profile, object by object as well. CRUD permissions, obviously, and field permissions. Every object has fields. Do I have access to the fields? Can I see them? Can I read only? Can I edit? Our different app and system permissions. So those user permissions being like the non-specific to objects functionality, or any custom permissions we might have. And then do I, on my profile as an end user, have any login hour restrictions or login IP range restrictions? So these are all different things that be controlled by the profile. If you've ever jumped into profile, you know it is page after page after page after page of stuff. It is very large and complex. That's sometimes why we might want to think about assigning permissions and managing permissions with permission sets, because it lets you interact with those pieces of the system more granularly without having to be in the giant profile and digging through pages to find it and make sure settings are correct. Each user has to have a record. If I have a login to the system, I have a user record. So the user object in the system is going to be the list of all of our users, past and present, active and inactive. A list that just kind of lives on for eternity. And within the user record, I have each individual user information, their personnel stuff, where they live, you know, address, their own locale settings. So if they're not under the company location, maybe they're out of state, out of country, out of time zone, whatever, we have all that stuff in there for them. Also, we'll see whatever license they have, or feature license, or permission set licenses, all the extra functions. Their profile, which is required for every user, and then role. And role is going to lead into the different record access specifically. That's all on the user record as well. And login history, which is really helpful for an admin. If I have somebody that's like, I can't log in, something's wrong, I can do a little investigation there. Now, permission sets work like the profile does in a way, but it gives us a way to isolate specific permissions and even group them. Permission sets grant additional system permissions to specific users, and that would layer on top of their existing profile permissions. So permission sets, like I said, give us a way to be more like specific and granular about individual system settings and permissions that we don't want to group within the whole profile. But we also have the ability to assign like individual users a little bit extra. Because at the end of the day, whatever's on the profile plus the permission sets would then equal our total user access. Let me give you a basic example. I've got 10 users in the sales user profile. And we as an organization do not allow our sales users to delete opportunities because we said so. So all of our sales users have opportunity object access. They've got create, they've got read, and they can edit, but they do not have delete. Cool. Well, let's say Susie, who's my 10th sales user, is the team lead. And Susie is going to help us clean up our dead opportunities or opportunities that are junk or whatever the case may be. Duplicates even, who knows. But I don't need all of my sales user profile folks to delete. I just need Susie to. I can create a permission set for delete opportunities and assign it to Susie only. So Susie's profile plus her permission set would then equal her total user access. So in that case, Susie would be a sales user profile person, but she could delete even though the others couldn't. So that gives us a way to just pass out a little extra additional permissions to specific users that layer on top of their existing profile. Now, some folks are like, well, there was a shift of like, let's try to focus more on permission sets for our users versus profiles, because profiles are giant, they're a lot to manage, and they're kind of rigid in that if I were to change one permission, it's going to change it for everybody. Where if I need to be able to have a little more control and just change something for one person, but I still want them to have all the other stuff on their profile, that's what where permission sets come in. So folks were kind of Salesforce in general too was kind of saying like, hey, maybe permission sets is better way to manage user permissions. But you have a choice and you can use both or one or the other or whatever. So then the other question I get a lot is like, hey, what do I have to do on profile and what do I have to do on permission sets? So these are the only have tos on profiles. If I want to incorporate login hour restrictions or login IP range restrictions, 100% has to be done on the profile. There is no way to do that permission set. So if you're going to incorporate that, that would be profile. The default record type in app. Default being, what is the one that opens up automatically when I sign in for the first time today? For us altogether, our default app is sales. We have other apps back here that we can access, but always this is the one that's going to show up default. That has to be set up on the profile. Now, sure, we can have other apps available and we can work with those on the permission set, but that default one is assigned here. And our default record type, if we're using record types. So leads, I think, uses record types here. If I were to click the new button on leads and it says, hey, let's select the record type. The one that's selected automatically for you, that's the default. That also has to be set on the profile. And then page layout assignment. And in general, one page layout assignment per object per profile. So those are the only have-tos on profiles. Now, permission set, you can do the rest of the stuff. Your non-defaulted record types and apps, your tab settings for field permissions, object permissions, the full CRUD can be set up there as well. Different user system permissions, connected apps, Apex classes, Visualforce pages, custom permissions, all that stuff can be managed on permission sets. Now you cannot manage login hours and IP ranges over on permission sets, and these defaults and record or page layout types has to be on profiles, not on permission sets. Otherwise, it's kind of which way works best for you and your organization. Okay, so I've talked a lot. I'm going to pause here and ask you if you have any questions about that. That was a lot of stuff I threw at you. Oh, my voice was fading. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. That was about 15 minutes ago. Am I okay for everybody? Can y'all hear me?
All good.
Okay.
Yep, all good.
Okay. Sorry about that, Robbie, Karen. Hopefully you're gonna hear me good now. All right, so let's take a break and then we'll talk a little bit more about adding and removing permissions. Okay, cool. Thank you guys. All right, let's take our break. If anybody was not able to access org from Nicolette, I'm not sure if you were in and out when we were jumping into there. If you need help with that, let me know. Anybody else was not able to access that org farm. It's a funny. It gives us another method to then assign that group to individual user, and then they have all of the permissions that are within that group. Now we can mix and match permissions in groups and we can reuse them in other groups. So it's a way for us to just kind of bundle permissions and hand them out. So it's just easier for us to manage. Permission sets have always been about granting additional. It's never been about taking away permissions. Those of us who've used them before probably know that. Or if you've taken our other classes, we try to enforce permission sets are about granting additional. It's not about taking away. However, we have a fairly new option, a function called muting permission. The key things to remember about a muting permission is it doesn't take away specifically. I like to say puts the pause button on a permission. So that's number one. It kind of mutes it or pauses the ability for that particular permission to happen if you have that in your permission set group. Also, muting permissions are only available in the groups. You can't mute an individual permission set. You can only mute individual permissions within the realm of a group. And that muting or that pause button then would only affect whomever has that group assigned to them. So even if that particular permission was used in another group, it does not affect them. And that is a muting permission. Field level security can be handled on the profile or the permission set. And basically what that says is it's the directions of what fields those users can see, edit, or not see at all. And that would be in anywhere. So like on the record itself, if you try to edit the record, if you're using related lists that would have that field, if you're searching, if you're running reports, list views, anywhere that that field would be available, it's going to fall under those directions. Here's a quick little visual. We've got our accounts receivable person who needs credit card number, right? Because they're billing and doing all the good stuff. And this is the opportunity. Ashley Sports Extravaganza 150, whatever. They've got credit card number there. Well, our marketer over here looking at the same exact opportunity can't see that information because that field has been hidden via field level security. Field level security can be taken care of at the field level on the profile. Or it can be on page layouts. So if we want to just flat out remove that field from a particular page, whoever then, whatever profiles has that page layout, they would not see that field. So what at the end of the day, basically the most restrictive security setting is always going to win. And whichever of those two are more restrictive for those particular users, that would be the one. So that is what we talk about with profile and permission sets. Now let's jump over to record access. So I'm an end user and my profile permissions are all laid out via profile and permission set. But now we're focusing on which records within that object I can actually interact with and to what level can I interact with them. So there's kind of two main categories and it's based on who owns the record. Every single record in Salesforce has an owner. It's just one of those things. There's no record that have blank owner. Now, whether the owner is a user or a queue, that's, neither here nor there. Let's talk about users, owners. So my name is in the owner field of whatever record, then I would have what's called full access permissions to that record. Full access for review, edit, share, transfer, or delete. That's full, like special record ownership privileges, full access. Now that's always going to depend on whether or not their profile or permission sets say they can do that. So given they have the appropriate profile permission sets, the user owning a record can view, edit, share, transfer, delete. Now let's just say theoretically, Alaba, the owner of All About Camping, let's just pretend on her profile or permission set mix, whatever, she doesn't have delete on the account object. Even if she's the owner, she still wouldn't be able to delete. So record access is always still going to look up to that profile or permission to see what that says we can do with the object. So it always looks up to the object level permissions and then those record level permissions fall into place. But given they have full object cred on that object, they would have these full access privileges based on being an owner of the record. So that's default access based on record ownership. Now, these are our levels of record access. We can have full, so that's like the ownership, full access privileges. Read write. Read write is either view, view and edit. Edit is either just edit or also delete. And that's going to be based on what the object permissions say. So edit might just flat out be edit. I can edit fields and stuff. But edit might also be I can delete as well. So edit has kind of two parts to it. Read only, that's read only. I can see it, but I can't edit it. I can't create new. I just can view it. Or no access, it doesn't exist in my world. So these are the four levels basically of record access, keeping in mind that default access would be record ownership. So then what happens if I don't own a record as an end user? That's where this triangle starts. This triangle here is all the little pieces, parts for record access. Somebody earlier said, what does OWD stand for? OWD stands for organization-wide defaults. They are, in fact, organization-wide in that whatever you enter for that particular object, it affects everybody in the organization. They are object by object, and you can have public read, write, which means basically, even if I'm not the owner, I could view it and I can edit it. And edit, again, would be whatever the write is, would be what my permissions for that object say. Or public read only, or private. Public read only, meaning I could just see it, but I can't edit it. Private means I don't see it at all unless my name's in that owner field. So that's what OWDs do. OWDs actually kind of lock down record access, object by object. Then we have to start figuring out who needs to see what. So we've locked it down to the most restricted level, and we start there. That's OWDs, organization-wide default. Then we start looking at how do we open up records vertically. So like if I'm a rep, like at a lower level on the role hierarchy, and I own all of my opportunities, but let's say our OWDs were marked as private, my boss now above me can't see my opportunities because she doesn't own them. So the role hierarchy, when we structure that in the system, it's almost like an org chart. If you can kind of visualize that, although it is not an org chart and it's not about compensation or any of that, but if you can kind of like visualize the structure of your employee organization, if I'm down here at the bottom, I have a boss, their boss probably has a boss, and maybe all the way up to CEO or whatever. So I own these records, my name, it's private OWD. If my boss is above me in the role hierarchy, then my boss inherits my special ownership privileges. So they can then see what I'm doing. They can see my records, even though they don't own them, and up the vertical chain. So it opens up access vertically, bottom to top, one direction only. So that's good for my higher ups. What about my peers? What about my direct peers, or maybe in another vertical? How would I be able to access records that I don't own if I'm not somebody's boss, but I collaborate with them? That's where sharing rules come into play. Sharing rules give us the option to share records object by object, records that are either owned by certain users or meet a certain criteria. So all the records of role hierarchy at some level, and anybody that meets that particular ownership criteria, and then we can share with certain users, whether we role and subordinate, public groups, even public groups are an administrator defined grouping of users, and they work really well with sharing rules. And that's our lateral or horizontal access. We could also say, oh, I only want to share records of a certain criteria, like maybe a geographical, like zip code or something. I'm going to share all of these records of a certain object in this zip code with all of these users. So really sharing rules are a way for us to find a bunch of records and share them with a bunch of users. So if we have lots, we want to share a lot. Well, what if I only want to share like one record with one user or one record with multiple users? That's the last part of this triangle on the right. This is our flexible access. This is our one-off record access method. And I can either get this done by teams or manual sharing. Now teams, there's 3 objects we can work with teams, and 3 objects only. But those teams are going to be a way for us to either predefine a team and say, I want to share this with everybody on my account team, so to speak. Or I can just individually add people to that record as part of the team, and then they would have access to the record. So the things you're probably going to want to know about teams is which objects they work with. Like I said, it's 3 objects and they're standard. It's accounts, opportunities, cases. Accounts, opportunities, cases. Now I like to use this. Actually, I stole it from another instructor. But that's what we do. So teams, this is how I remember teams. I think taco. It's fun in the 5-day class because usually we talk about this on Tuesday, and I'm like, it's Taco Tuesday. So let's just pretend it's Taco Tuesday. Taco Friday just doesn't like roll off the tongue as well. But teams is T, A is accounts, C is cases, and O opportunities. So if you're trying to figure out a way to remember which objects can use teams, think taco. Teams, taco, accounts, cases, opportunity. So it's those 3 objects and those 3 objects only. Why only those three objects? I don't know. Probably a really smart answer and reason that is over my head. But those three objects, and it gives you a little bit of reporting ability too, because you can actually report on accounts with teams or opportunities with teams, so forth. But it's an easy peasy way to be able to go in and share particular object records with certain users. So I think opportunities is turned on. So us as admins have to actually enable the team ability in our org. And once we do that, then our end users can actually put people on their teams, which I think is kind of cool because it gives them, that responsibility, and the onus is on them to pick their teams. This is taking forever. I don't think it's going to be letting me point things out here today very easily, but I wanted to give you a visual of that just to open up. You know what? Let me do a global. Oh, here we are. I'll say there. We'll look at this opportunity. So what it does is it gives you the ability to see teams and related lists. This is what we would turn on as admins. We would say, yeah, I want it on this page layout and I want to use teams. And then whoever, this Alama or whatever, she's the owner. She could go in here and add people to her teams. I, of course, as the admin, could add to teams, and their manager in the role hierarchy could as well. But this just gives our users a little bit of functionality to say, hey, you're on, we work together. I need you over here to help me. And then I don't have to manage that as an admin because, I don't know who people work with. Frankly, I don't care. I'm an admin. I don't care who you work with. You do you. And then manual sharing solves the problem for when it's not one of the taco objects. So if it's something like leads and I wanted to share this lead with somebody, I could just click the manual sharing button. And that's like the easiest thing ever. I gotta close this because I am in the wrong tab there. We're sharing right down here. So this button in the top right-hand corner, I could actually just click sharing and I could say, oh, I'm going to share this with Bob over here and whatnot. So that is our method for record access. Keeping in mind, record access, these considerations are only for records that a user does not own. So this is the set of directions on how an individual would be able to interact with a record where their name is not in the owner field. Because if it is in the owner field, they've got those special access privileges. So at the end of the day here, at the end of this triangle, all of our users should have access to even one low record on one object correctly. Okay, let me stop and pause for questions there. How we feeling, guys? I don't see anything in chat. We good?
So does this go across the apps? Like, if you have marketing or sales?
Yeah, as long as it's the same org here. So like if I have certain objects on the sales app, or maybe I have those same objects on the service app. Yeah. So apps are really just a way for us to organize the tabs on top of the screen. But if I go and I say view all, so apps are just like little containers for all of these different objects. So whatever we're setting up from a record access standpoint, data security, yes, it's gonna affect any of those objects no matter what app they lay on. Now, if I don't give you access to an app or I don't give you access to specific objects, you're not going to be able to see that no matter what. But as long as you have access to those objects, then the record access considerations fall into place. So it's I don't want to say object access is more important, but it's kind of, we have to start there and then make sure that access is correct. Then we can look at the record access considerations. So if we go back to this guy here, we're right here on the third level, and it's kind of baked in. So I have to be able to log in, obviously, or I can't see anything. I have to have object access, or I wouldn't be able to see the records in there. But if I do have object access, how would I experience records? And then if I have access to records, how would I experience the fields within the record of those objects? So this is kind of baked in the order of how things are set up and how they evaluate. Other questions, thoughts?
Are you sharing
Yep.
your screen or I can just see it?
I'm looking on my side monitor here and I can see. Can you guys see?
Oh, okay, I can see it now.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. Any other questions? Okay. We talked about that, went through here, I'm get back to, okay, here we are now. Delegated, so I kind of alluded to this where we have somebody who's that full system admin. And then you can have, custom admins, you can have delegate admins, so it's just a way for us to be able to like, pass out some admin responsibility, some setup menu access, but not the whole thing. And you can kind of decide what and how you want to, allow those different types of admins, like a junior admin or something, what types of functionality you'd like them to be responsible for. And so that's basically what delegated administration allows you to do. It lets you assign limited admin privileges to maybe non-admins or non-full admins. So I could do stuff like maybe reset passwords or maybe even create users or whatnot, but not like some of the more complicated configuration. Some other user management tools are going to be freezing users, deactivating, logging in as, and then those password policies. So of course, password policies we talked about a minute ago, where it's all that stuff like you have to change them every 90 days, can't be your past 10, you have to have uppercase, lowercase, symbol, unicorn hair, drop of your firstborn's blood, you know, like that whole thing. Now, freezing and deactivating users are similar, but the implications are pretty different. If I deactivate a user, it frees up a license where I can then give it to someone else. So I've got somebody who's retired, they've been let go, maybe they moved to a different department, they don't use the system anymore, whatever the case may be. I need to be able to deactivate them so that I can give that paid license to someone else who will use it. When I deactivate a user, though, it does not affect the records that they own, in that they'll still be the owner until I assign that to someone else as an admin, or maybe I'm the manager and I'm transferring or whatever it happens to be. So all the historical data stays intact of the user that did own it, and then you can transfer it, and from that point on, then it becomes that new owner. So you don't mess up records or whatever, or delete records, like you don't deactivate records by deactivating that owner. But then that owner would not, or that user would not be able to log in anymore. And then you can do whatever you need to do in terms of the records. Deactivated users live in the system forever because they are tied to historical data. They're in that user list back in the setup menu, but they're just not active anymore. Freezing a user disables their ability to log in, but it doesn't deactivate them. So no free up license. I think of the example of like somebody's on medical leave or maternity leave maybe, and you just want to freeze them so they don't log in the meantime. But on the other hand, maybe you do deactivate them because you want to reassign the license to whoever's taking over for a while. And then you can go and reactivate a user if necessary. So those are your two options. The big difference is when you freeze a user, you do not free up a license. When you deactivate a user, you do. But both methods, no one gets to log in. Admins can log in as end users. That's a cool tool that I just rhymed, did not mean to. That's a cool tool. But it is, as admins, as we're building things, we can log in as our end users and get a bird's eye view of what they would see. And it's a nice way for us to check and make sure we're doing stuff correctly. However, there are some organizations out there, maybe different industries, if there's sensitive data or whatnot, and you don't want your users or your admins to log in as an end user, Salesforce can disable that for the admin. But other than that, any admin can log in as an end user. Wrap grow. Yes, Theo, I'm gonna be like the first Salesforce admin rapper out there. You saw me on video. You think I could pull that off? But thank you for your vote of confidence. I'm gonna skip this page because we realized last week this is set up. They gotta edit this. So we're gonna skip that because it's not correct. However, let's take a look at these questions. I mean, you can do the matching thing if you want. It just they doubled answers and they gotta fix it. So take like 3 minutes right here and just read through these questions and come up with what you think the answer would be, and then we'll talk about it. All right, what do we think? We've got a user who's saying they can't log in. I went into their user record, and on the login history, I see no failed login attempts. What do you think the issue could be?
IP address or the login times.
Okay. So I have no history for her logging. Like, let's say she calls and says, I can't log in, something's wrong. And she said she's tried today, but I see no failed attempts.
She's not using the right username or email.
Or how would the wrong
Most
company?
likely, or wrong company would be rough, right? But yes, so most likely wrong username. Because I'm not going to get a tick for them trying to log in and getting a failed attempt if they haven't used the correct username. So it could either be incorrect username or, and I think maybe somebody said this, I was outside the login range or and maybe even login hours. If I saw that, I would see that they tried to log in, but it just would have failed. So it's whether or not I actually see an attempt on the record. If there's no attempt, it's most likely incorrect user ID. At NTO, we use private data model for accounts. So in other words, on our OWD, it's marked as private, meaning if I don't own it, I wouldn't see it. When sales engineers are working on specific accounts, they need to see accounts in question, as well as the associated opportunities and cases. Sales engineers don't own accounts. How could we grant them this access? So I need to get sales engineers access to that. Trying to resize the chat. Sorry about that. What do we think about number 2?
Can we create a permission set for them?
Well, the permission set would be permission sets are only going to go to the object level. So let's say those sales engineers do have object access. So that would be at either the profile or permission set level. Okay, so Victoria said manual sharing. Manual sharing is one answer, sure. What is this object though? Is that part of Taco? It is part of Taco. So therefore we could manual share, but what else could we do since this is one of the Taco objects? We could put the sales. Yeah, you got it, Charlotte. We could put the sales engineers on the team for that specific record. Perfect. VP of Global Sales just left the company to go work for a competitor. Oh, how dare they? What action should an admin take to prevent them from accessing Salesforce data?
Deactivate the user.
I'm going to deactivate them. What's the difference between a trusted IP range or a login IP range? They sound similar and they're confusing at the beginning.
And I say that trusted IP range is within the VPN protocol, and login IP range would be internal to the org or the organization.
Not exactly. Joe says skips authentication. Okay, you're right. So trusted IP ranges, and I don't think we even really talked about this on a slide, but trusted IP ranges are a way for us to set up ahead of time that trusted range so that if you are logging in for the first time, like with a new computer or a new mobile app or whatever, it doesn't stop you and say, all right, I need you to grab the 6-digit code from your text or your email or whatever. Trusted IP range would be like, oh yes, you're in this trusted range, you have the correct ID and password, come on in. Versus login IP ranges, those are actually a restriction, meaning no matter what, unless you're within this range, you can't log in. So one skips the authentication code, Joe, like you said in chat, and one prevents unless you're in a specific range. That's kind of like the basic hard and fast answer. All right. And then that takes us to the end of this lesson. This was probably our most meaty lesson in that it's security, and I think security is super duper important. So we've got a number of Trailhead module names. If you throw those into Trailhead search bar, you would find those modules if you wanted to learn a little bit more about that. And that's it for lesson 1. Nice job, guys. Let's jump into lesson 2. Where is my thing here? Let me grab those slides.